Conflict, it can make or break a family. Today, we look at the benefits of mediation. Then, making a cross-border move, what you need to carefully consider. And do you have debts piling up? There's options to pay it off faster. All this and more today on The Wealthy Life. Welcome to The Wealthy Life. What is mediation? How does it work? What can you expect? Joining us today is mediator Lori Frank to discuss the benefits of mediation and when it's needed. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So what does a mediator do?
Well, a mediator works with anywhere from two people to large groups of people when there's a dispute that's happening. And so a mediator is a neutral third party who can come in, help them to identify what the dispute is about, what their needs are, and hopefully help move them towards a resolution.
So you mean grown adults can't just figure this all out on their own? They need some help?
Sometimes they need some help.
What are the most common situations you might get called into to help mediate?
Sure. One of the most common is separations. So people are separating, and if they have children, they need to figure out what their parenting is going to look like after separation. And of course, there's the financial separation piece that needs to be figured out.
So they both want full custody. They both want all the money, and there's just not enough to go around.
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully we can figure out something in the middle that works for everybody.
What are some of the other situations you might be called in to help out with?
Another one I go into often is workplace mediation. So in that situation, I'm working sometimes with just a couple staff members who are having a dispute, sometimes a board on a nonprofit, or groups of staff that are just not clicking. And so I'll come in and see what we can do to figure things out.
I would imagine there's no shortage of workplace situations that would benefit from a mediator.
Absolutely.
So who would normally pay for that?
Well, in the case of separation mediation, the couple is usually sharing the costs equally.
That is, if they even agree to get a mediator in the first place.
That is the first step. They both need to agree to enter into the mediation process.
Okay. And what do costs range? Is it an hourly fee or is it package priced?
It depends on the mediator. Some offer packages where you've got a certain number of hours all included in that, and then others are hourly.
Now, in the case of a workplace dispute, would the employer typically pay for that, or do you see situations where the employee wants to pay to bring someone in?
So far, I've only worked with organizations where the employer is paying for the mediation, but I suppose it's possible that it could go the other way.
So where do people go to hire a mediator, and is there specific criteria and qualifications that someone needs to have to do that job?
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of mediation that you're looking for. There are rosters where you know that if someone's on that roster, they've been vetted in a certain way.
Where do you find these rosters?
Yes, good question. So there's a few organizations here in BC. So there's Mediate BC, there's ADR BC, there's Family Mediation Canada. So basically, if you Google, you'll find some rosters, and there's rosters in the other provinces as well. In family mediation, there are very definite criteria that a mediator needs to fit in order to be able to mediate those disputes. In civil mediation, it's a little bit more of the Wild West. You don't necessarily have to have certain credentials, except if you're going to be on a roster.
Okay, so what is civil mediation then?
So civil mediation would be things like workplace mediation, construction, basically anything outside of family.
So if I'm having a disagreement with my contractor on my home renovations, maybe that'd be another case where you'd bring in a mediator?
It is, absolutely. Construction mediation is a huge field.
What can people expect as the outcome from mediation?
Well, hopefully you come up with something that works for both people. You're usually never going to get everything that you need, or rather everything that you want.
Compromise is important to
yes.
make this work.
Yes, compromise, negotiation, prioritizing. What do you really need? What can you let go? Where can you be flexible?
Okay, so what happens if people can't get there? What's a worst case scenario you've seen? Like, have you dealt with cases where they go through the process and they just come away with nothing?
Every once in a while that does happen. I've gone through the process. People even have got to the point where they have an agreement. We get it all written up and something happens after. So worst case scenario, people are off to court.
Okay, so you talked about an agreement. So in a perfect scenario, a mediator will help people come to an agreement, a resolution that they can both live with. And then is that written in a formal document? What does that look like?
Yeah, usually there's always a formal document written up so that it's very crystal clear what they've agreed to, so that there are no miscommunications after about what they thought they had agreed to. We review it thoroughly. Depending on what you need your document to do may depend on what it looks like at the end. So sometimes people are filing their documents with court. In family, you might need your document to take to a mortgage broker, to your bank, those kinds of things.
Right, and the key is once both people agree and have the written document, to put their signature on it.
Yes, and especially in family mediation, I always recommend that people get independent legal advice before signing, and that really helps to minimize any risk to both of them.
Lori, this has been fantastic. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
And don't go away. Our next segment is for all you snowbirds.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. More and more Americans are looking to move to Canada, and who can blame them? But there are several things to consider before making a cross-border move. We'll now discuss what those are with cross-border specialist Jerry Scott. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sybil. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
So what are some of the main reasons Americans want to move to Canada?
Well, I think the big thing is the American dollars go a lot further than Canadian dollars. So there's a 25% premium when they move up to Canada here. Healthcare obviously is pretty big. We're hearing horror stories of the cost of medical expenses in the States. So I think Canada is seen as being a lot bigger or a lot more attractive than maybe the Americans would have it currently.
And don't forget about the stories of falling in love and moving because someone special has lured you away.
Yes, it works both ways. There's a lot of Canadians going down south, but what we are finding though is that there's a lot of reasons why the Americans are coming up to Canada. And as mentioned, if they are married to a Canadian spouse, we're seeing people come up to Canada, look after ailing parents. And once again, I think Canada is just it can be just a nicer place.
So is it easy for people to make that move? Can they just pack up and cross the border and live in Canada?
Yes and no. For some, depending on the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, there are options available for those highly educated. If you're being transferred by your employer up to Canada where that job can't be filled by a Canadian, you have those circumstances. But it depends on the individual. And, once again, I think people have to work with the right immigration person and they'll be able to point in the right direction or provide them with the best experience possible.
So, Jerry, how long does it typically take to go through the process and everything involved to make a move from the U.S. to Canada?
Depending on the immigration lawyers you're working with, sometimes it can be very quick. And when I say quick, that could be 12 to 16 months. And other cases, we're hearing that it does drag on. So you have to make sure you get the right people working for you.
And is it expensive?
You know what? Once again, you get what you pay for. I mean, we're hearing stories that some people are filing documents on their own, and that could cost you a couple $1,000s. But if you go through an immigration lawyer, you get what you pay for. And if you do it on your own, you get what you pay for.
Hey, but it costs money to live in paradise, so you just got to pay up sometimes, I guess.
That is so true.
So what are some of the other challenges and complications people may face? I remember hearing something about a gradual application process, and you have to spend so many days and track the number of days. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, once you're granted your permanent residence card, some people call it the Maple card, you're required over the next 5 years to spend 1,095 days in Canada. And if you have to physically be present in Canada for those 1,095 days. Once you've done that, well, then it can lead to permanent citizenship.
So how do you get a permanent residency card? Was that the part we spoke of earlier through immigration lawyers that can take a while?
That is correct.
Okay,
That's
so you
correct.
get through that hoop. Then for the next 5 years, you got to track your days, and you have to meet that minimum. How do people keep track, and how often do they need to file that, and with who?
Well, there's a couple of ways. I mean, obviously, you want to be able to make sure you're maintaining a relationship with your immigration immigration lawyer. The other thing is we've designed an app called the Canada Physical Presence Tracker, which basically is available to all the immigration lawyers in Canada. They pass it on to their clients, and this is just a nice way to track your days. And if you don't do it through the app, you're going to have to use the old spreadsheet.
Well, there's an app for everything.
There's an app for everything.
Oh, that's
true.
Fantastic. Now, what about their investment accounts? If I've got a retirement account in the US and I'm moving to Canada, can I bring it with me?
Well, you're going to find, depending on who you talk to, there's some advisors that are licensed on both sides of the border, and they're going to tell you that you should keep your accounts in the States. The problem is that as soon as you have a Canadian address, the U.S. brokerage firms basically, they call you up, they give you 40 days, and they basically tell you have to move your account. So there are some advisors out there in Canada that are licensed on both sides of the border, and we can take care of that for those individuals. Now, you're also hearing stories that some Canadian advisors believe that what you should do is cash in your IRA, roll it into your RSP, credits will offset the two. Now, in some cases, it does work, and there are advantages to doing it. But we believe that if you trap an American in a higher tax jurisdiction, it might be disadvantaged for them down the road if they ever decide to move back to the United States.
Well, Jerry, thanks for sharing these words of wisdom and all these tips for Americans moving to Canada. Been great having you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Sybil.
And stay tuned. We'll cover the best pension options after the break.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Did you know you may have the option of taking a lump sum payment instead of a pension? Which is better? With us today are financial advisors Kaif Lalani and Cam Hudson to walk us through what you should consider. Cam, Kaif, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Sybil.
Thanks.
So Cam, what are the options people have when they're about to take a pension?
Well, they have three options. One is they can take their pension as usual. One is to buy an annuity, and the third is to commute their pension.
What does commuting your pension mean?
To commute your pension is to take the present value of your pension in cash.
Okay, so Kaif, why would people do that?
Yeah, great question. So when you carry on with a normal pension as you'd have with wherever you were working prior, it's a one size fits all type strategy, right? And as we know, life is not a one size fits all. Everybody has a different need, a want, a different lifestyle. They're at different parts of their career. By commuting your pension, you get the ability to tailor what your investment strategy looks like up until you retire.
Right, so you maybe want to take a little bit more aggressive investment approach to hopefully get a higher income stream than maybe your pension would have done.
Yes, exactly. And it also gives you a chance to decide when you want to take that income.
Oh, Cam, tell us a little bit more about when you might want to take your income.
Well, you can wait. Many people, when they retire at 60, actually still want to work. They still want to do a job. So if you don't need that income right away, you can actually hold it and actually invest the money. Or if you need capital to start a business or to help your family, you actually get access to cash right then and there.
Now, how is it taxed?
Half is taxed, you'll lose 30%, and then there'll be additional taxation depending on your individual needs. Then the other half is locked in until you're 55 in a locked-in registered retirement account.
Okay, and if you want to avoid the taxes, can you just roll the whole thing into a locked-in plan?
No. So the way that works is if you have RSP room,
Yes.
you're able to use that to shelter some of the taxes.
Okay.
However, the rest will be treated like income.
But you know what? You got to pay tax. Pay it now, pay it later.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just needs to be factored in.
Yes. And by consulting an advisor, a financial advisor, you have the ability to take a look at what that looks like down the road to make an educated decision on when you want to pay those taxes.
Okay, so if I'm trying to maximize the amount of income I'm going to receive during my lifetime, how do I know which is better, whether the commuted value or the pension is going to generate more?
Yeah, great question. A lot of factors to consider. You know, there's extraneous factors like the market and rates of return, but also taxation, whether you want to receive the taxes now or later when you're earning less income, depending on whether you've started a new job or if you're going to continue to work for an extended period of time. So you want to consult a financial advisor and see what is the best way to maximize that income for yourself.
So you've got to do the math.
You do.
There's no short,
No
quick,
shortcut.
down and dirty answer on this one.
That's correct.
Cam, what happens if I pass away? Is there a difference on whether I take the pension or the lump sum on what happens to my money?
For the vast majority of pensions, there is. Most pensions now in Canada, your spouse only receives 50 to 66% on average. Each pension's different, but if you want to leave it to a loved one or multiple loved ones, the only way for that money to pass on in your estate is to commute your pension.
Okay, so that's something people might want to consider if they don't expect to live longer than their spouse, or if they want to leave it to other family members, maybe taking the commuted value is better. Because if there's something left there, you've got something to leave behind.
Well, exactly, or they're single.
What else should people know about whether to take a lump sum or the pension?
Yeah, so really what's important is taking a look at what lifestyle you want to live and where you need this money to go. So tax planning is important, estate planning is important, financial planning as a whole is important. There's a lot of different factors and everybody's different. So really getting an idea of what your needs are and then planning for those needs.
Now, I assume once you've made a decision, you can't change your mind. Is that right, Cam?
That is correct. Once you've made the decision, you are locked in.
And is there an age at which this option is available to people at, or can it be at any age?
This option generally comes when you're about to retire. So what we always recommend is you speak to a financial advisor before you think of retiring, and then you decide whether you want to commute your pension or take your pension.
So, Kaif, is there any implications to health and dental benefits if you take the cash rather than keeping it in your pension plan?
Great question. There's a lot of third-party providers out there that offer health and dental throughout your lifetime. Being fortunate in being in Canada, a lot of that is already included as a taxpayer in Canada. So you've got to consult an insurance specialist, which a financial planner may be able to put you in touch with to figure out what the best solution is for you.
Okay, so if I hear you right, if you take the lump sum, you're no longer going to get the health and dental
Correct.
From your employer. But if you take the pension, your health and dental may carry on?
Correct.
Okay. And Cam, is there any other death or estate implications that should be considered before making a decision?
Yes, there is. So you should always consider what your plan is with that money, as well as where you believe your long-term goals are. If you think you just want to live your life and continue with your spouse, taking the pension's great. But if you really want that capital to go to the next generation, you definitely need to speak to a financial advisor.
Thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you for having us, Sybil.
Thank you.
And up next, learn how to pay down your debt faster.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Welcome back. Thanks for your letters, emails, tweets, and messages. Today's question is from Antonio. Dear Sybil, I currently have a mortgage and money owed on my line of credit and 2 credit cards. I want to pay my debt off faster. What do you suggest? Much appreciated, Antonio. Well, Antonio, it's a great goal to want to pay off your debt and to do it even faster. Think of how good you will feel when you no longer have credit card debt. That feeling is important to remember because it's what's going to motivate you to do what's needed to get it paid off. Now, I notice you have 2 kinds of debt. You have a little bit of good debt, which is your mortgage, and you have bad debt, which is your credit cards. Now, your line of credit may fall somewhere in between. I don't know what you use that money on. Credit card debt is bad because it's at a high interest rate. You probably used it to buy things and you maybe meant to pay it off sooner but didn't. So one way of getting the debt paid down faster is to consolidate your debt. Use the equity in your home and or your line of credit to pay off that credit card debt, and then that way you've got things at a lower interest rate. The other thing that you want to consider is increasing your payments. Once you've got things consolidated, is there a way that you can increase your payments by $100 or $200 a month? Maybe have a look at where your money is going today. Maybe you can cut out some other expenses and redirect that same cash into paying off your debt. So consolidate your debt, lower your interest rate, and increase your payments. Those things combined will have your debt paid off in no time flat. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping you make smart financial decisions. Join the Wealthy Life Club and you'll gain access to everything you need to live your version of the wealthy life.